There's something you carry within yourself that's infinitely more powerful than any expensive cologne, any designer clothes, or any pickup technique you've ever tried to master. Carl Jung called this integrated psychic energy, and when you understand how to access it, your presence transforms into something almost magnetic. People feel your energy before you even open your mouth. They're drawn to you without being able to explain why. And the most fascinating part is that this has absolutely nothing to do with your physical appearance. The Roman philosopher Seneca once observed that it is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it. And when you waste your time trying to build attraction through external means, you are wasting the opportunity to develop the internal magnetism that actually matters. What I'm about to reveal goes against everything modern society teaches about attraction. While the world convinces you that magnetism comes from muscles, makeup, status, or performance, Jung discovered there's a much older and more primitive force operating underneath all of that. A force that, when awakened, makes you become dangerously attractive without needing to try to impress anyone. In this video, I'm going to show you Carl Jung's most closely guarded psychological secret about sexual magnetism. And when I say secret, it's because this is rarely spoken about openly. But it explains why certain people have a presence you simply cannot ignore, while others, no matter how beautiful they are, go completely unnoticed. The difference isn't in what they show, but in what they contain. Not in what they do, but in what they are. And if you're ready to discover how to become someone whose presence people feel from across the room, then watch until the end. Because what Jung revealed about sexual energy and personal magnetism will completely change how you exist in the world. And go ahead and subscribe to the channel, because here we don't talk about superficial attraction. We talk about the magnetic force that emerges from the inside out. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus once wrote that it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. And when you react to the world by performing and pretending, you fragment your energy. But when you react by being authentically yourself, you become whole. And wholeness is the foundation of true magnetism. Jung wasn't talking about manipulation or cheap seduction tricks. He was revealing a profound truth about human energy, about how certain people radiate a force that's felt not explained. And this force doesn't come from trying to please or impress. It comes from something much deeper, the complete integration of who you really are. What Jung discovered is that truly magnetic people don't hide their darkness. They integrate it. While most people try to appear perfect, polished, always positive, those who possess real magnetism have made peace with their own shadow. They know their demons, their most primitive desires, their internal contradictions, and instead of denying them, they've learned to dance with them. Jung believed it was impossible to be truly attractive without going through this process of shadow integration. Because when you reject parts of yourself, you lose access to your complete sexual energy. You become fragmented, predictable, without mystery. But when you accept and integrate all aspects of your personality, including those that society considers inappropriate, something magical happens. You become whole, and whole people exert an almost hypnotic attraction. Think about those people you know who have an undeniable presence. Maybe they're not the most beautiful in the room, but there's something about them that captures your attention. Something you can't define, but you feel it. What you're feeling is the presence of someone who isn't wasting energy trying to hide who they are. Someone who's made peace with their own complexity and can now channel all that energy into pure presence. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius wrote that the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. When your thoughts are consumed by trying to appear perfect, your soul reflects that fragmentation. But when your thoughts are consumed by self-acceptance, your soul reflects wholeness. And wholeness is what people are drawn to. Most people live at war with themselves. They spend enormous amounts of energy trying to suppress impulses, hide insecurities, maintain a perfect facade. But this internal war creates a tension that people feel even unconsciously. Have you ever been around someone who seems to always be controlling something? Who, even while smiling, you sense there's something forced, something unresolved. That's the feeling of someone who hasn't integrated their shadow. Now, compare that with someone you know who seems completely at ease with themselves, who can be vulnerable without seeming weak, who can be intense without being aggressive, who can be sensual without being vulgar. This person has integrated seemingly contradictory aspects of personality and because of this emanates an authenticity that's magnetic. Jung believed that true sexual attraction isn't based on perfection, but on completeness. And completeness means accepting and integrating both light and shadow, both strength and vulnerability, both the civilized and the primitive. When you stop fighting against aspects of your personality and start channeling them consciously, your energy becomes cohesive, powerful, magnetic. The philosopher Seneca also noted that true happiness is to enjoy the present without anxious dependence on the future. And when you stop anxiously trying to control how others perceive you, you can enjoy the present moment fully. And that presence is what makes you magnetic. But there's another crucial element that Jung identified: focused psychic energy. Jung discovered that truly attractive people don't scatter their energy trying to please everyone. They concentrate it. They know who they are, what they want, and radiate that clarity like an almost physical force. Have you ever noticed how some people walk into a room and immediately you know they're there? Not because they make noise or call attention to themselves, but because there's a quality in their presence that's unmistakable. Jung would explain this through the concept of concentrated psychic energy. These people aren't fragmented in 1,000 different directions trying to be multiple things to multiple people. They are one thing intensely. Modern society teaches us to be chameleons, to constantly adapt, to change our personality depending on the context. But Jung observed that this scatters our vital energy. When you're constantly changing masks, you lose access to your magnetic core. You become a collection of empty personas instead of a solid and attractive presence. People with real magnetism have made choices. They know what they value, what they desire, what they reject. And this internal clarity creates a centripetal force that draws others into their orbit. Not because they're trying to attract, but because they're being genuinely themselves so completely that it becomes irresistible. Jung said that psychic energy is like water. When it's spread out in a shallow puddle, it has no force. But when it's channeled through a narrow river, it becomes powerful enough to move mountains. The same thing happens with human presence. When you focus your energy on being authentically you, instead of trying to be everything to everyone, you become magnetic. This means that the path to magnetism isn't adding more things to your personality, but subtracting. It's not about becoming more, it's about becoming more you. And when you become unmistakably yourself, people who resonate with your frequency are naturally attracted, while those who don't resonate simply drift away. And that's perfect because you don't want to attract everyone. You want to attract the right people. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus also taught that no great thing is created suddenly, and the magnetism that comes from focused psychic energy is no exception. It is created through the accumulation of small choices, each one building on the last. Each time you choose authenticity over performance, you build that magnetism. And as you build it, it becomes part of your presence. But here's where things get interesting. There's a crucial difference between charisma and true magnetism. Charisma is something you project outward. It's performance. It's about giving people what they want to see. True magnetism is the opposite. It's a force that comes from within and doesn't need performance to exist. Charismatic people are good at reading the room and adapting to what people want. Magnetic people don't adapt, they simply are. And people either feel attracted or they don't. And paradoxically, it's this lack of trying to please that makes magnetism so powerful. Jung observed that when you stop trying to control how others perceive you, something extraordinary happens. You release a raw authenticity that's almost irresistible. Because in a world full of people performing, someone who simply is stands out like a beacon in the darkness. And here's the deepest secret. True sexual magnetism isn't about seducing, it's about fascinating. Seduction implies an intention, a strategy, an objective. Fascination is different. It's when your very existence becomes interesting enough to hold people's attention without you needing to do anything specific to achieve it. Jung understood that when you become fascinating in yourself, when your inner life becomes rich and complex, when you develop real depth, people are naturally drawn to discover who you are. They sense there are layers to explore, mysteries to uncover, depth to discover. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius wrote that the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. When your thoughts are consumed by performance, your soul reflects that. But when your thoughts are consumed by self-discovery, your soul reflects depth. And depth is what makes people want to explore you. But how do you develop this fascination? Jung would say it's through the process he called individuation, becoming who you really are, integrating all parts of your psyche. And this process inevitably involves confronting your shadow, accepting your complexity, and stopping trying to be a sanitized version of yourself. When you do this, when you stop hiding your imperfections and integrate them instead, something magical happens. You become real, and real people have a magnetic quality that performative people simply cannot replicate. Think about the most magnetically attractive people you know, not the most beautiful, but those who have a presence you can't ignore. I bet they have some characteristics in common. They don't try to hide their quirks. They're comfortable with silence. They don't need constant validation, and there's a quality of mystery about them that makes you want to know more. This quality of mystery is crucial to magnetism, not artificial mystery. It's not about being deliberately enigmatic, but the natural mystery that comes when someone has a rich and complex inner life, when they're not constantly externalizing all their thoughts and feelings, when they have depth that can't be easily categorized. In a world where everyone is constantly sharing every detail of their life on social media, someone who maintains some mystery automatically becomes intriguing. Not because they're hiding something, but because they understand that not everything needs to be externalized, that some depth should be kept internal. The philosopher Seneca also observed that it is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it. And when you waste your time sharing every detail of your inner life, you are wasting the opportunity to maintain the mystery that makes you intriguing. And here's another crucial aspect of Jungian magnetism: physical presence. Jung believed that our psychic energy manifests through our body, our posture, our movements. Magnetically attractive people have a quality of physical presence that goes beyond mere appearance. They move with intention instead of anxiety. They occupy space naturally instead of shrinking or artificially inflating themselves. They make direct eye contact because they're not afraid to be seen. They speak with clarity because they know what they want to communicate. They truly listen because they're genuinely interested in what others have to say. All of this creates a presence that people feel physically. It's not about being tall or short, thin or heavy, beautiful or ordinary. It's about how you inhabit your own body, how you relate to the space around you, how you interact with other people from a position of personal integrity. Jung also realized that magnetically attractive people have a special relationship with their own desires. They don't deny what they want, but they're also not slaves to their impulses. They feel deeply, but they're not dominated by their feelings. They have passions, but they also have self-control. This integration between desire and discipline, between passion and self-control, creates a dynamic tension that's incredibly attractive. It's like an electrical current that people can feel. There's energy there, but there's also containment. There's fire, but there's also form. It's different from people who are either completely repressed without fire or completely uncontrolled fire without form. The combination of controlled passion, disciplined intensity, conscious desire creates a magnetic force that's almost irresistible. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus taught that it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. And how you react to your own desires determines whether they make you magnetic or make you weak. And perhaps most importantly, Jung discovered that truly magnetic people have a special relationship with solitude. They're not constantly seeking external validation because they've developed a solid connection with themselves. They can be alone without feeling lonely. They have a rich inner life that doesn't depend on constant external stimulation. This creates a quality of emotional independence that's incredibly attractive. When you don't desperately need someone, when you're fine alone but choose to be with others, it completely changes the dynamics of attraction. You're not coming from a place of need, but of abundance, and abundance is magnetic. Jung observed that when you stop desperately seeking connection and start genuinely connecting with yourself, external connections begin to flow naturally. It's as if you create a gravitational field around you. People are drawn into your orbit because they feel the solidity, the integrity, the completeness that emanates from you. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius wrote that you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. And when you realize that your connection to yourself is something you control, you find the strength to stop seeking validation from others. And that independence is what makes you magnetic. But there's a paradox here that Jung understood deeply. The less you need to be attractive, the more attractive you become. The less you try to impress, the more impressive you become. The less you perform magnetism, the more magnetic you become. This happens because when you stop trying, you release energy that was previously being used for image maintenance. This energy can then be channeled into simply being who you are more intensely, more completely, more integrated. And people feel this. They may not be able to articulate what it is, but they feel the difference between someone who's trying and someone who simply is. And simply being is infinitely more attractive than any performance, no matter how sophisticated. Jung also discovered that magnetically attractive people have a quality of timelessness. They're not constantly chasing the latest trends or trying to prove they're relevant. They have a classic, timeless quality that transcends passing fads. This doesn't mean they're old-fashioned or outdated. It means they've developed a sense of style, a way of being in the world that's based on who they are internally rather than what's fashionable externally. And this timeless authenticity is deeply attractive because it's rare. In a world where everyone's trying to stay current, someone who has their own timeless essence stands out. They're not following trends, they are the trend. Not because they're trying to lead, but because they're genuinely being themselves. The philosopher Seneca also noted that true happiness is to enjoy the present without anxious dependence on the future. And when you stop anxiously trying to keep up with trends, you can enjoy the present moment fully. And that presence is what makes you magnetic. And here's perhaps Jung's deepest insight about magnetism. He understood that true sexual attraction happens at the archetypal level. It's not just about physical chemistry or emotional compatibility. It's about recognition of deep, primordial patterns that are engraved in the human psyche. When you become truly integrated, when you embody both your light and your shadow, when you become genuinely yourself, you begin to embody universal archetypes. You become more than just an individual person. You become a symbol, a representation of something deeper and more universal. And people respond to this unconsciously. They feel that you represent something important, something significant, even if they can't articulate exactly what it is. You touch something primitive and deep in them, something that goes beyond superficial attraction into the realm of archetypal recognition. Jung called this the transcendent function. When you integrate apparent opposites within yourself, you transcend the normal limitations of personality and begin to embody universal qualities that resonate deeply with other people. That's why some people have a presence that goes beyond the merely personal. They've embodied aspects of the hero, the lover, the sage, the rebel in ways that touch something ancestral in us. And this archetypal resonance is the deepest magnetism of all. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus also taught that no great thing is created suddenly. And the archetypal resonance that comes from integration is no exception. It is created through the accumulation of small choices, each one building on the last. Each time you choose authenticity over performance, you build that resonance. And as you build it, it becomes part of your presence. But how do you cultivate this? How do you develop this kind of magnetic presence? Jung would say it starts with radical honesty with yourself. Stop trying to be who you think you should be and start discovering who you really are. Stop rejecting parts of yourself and start integrating them. Stop performing and start simply existing. And this is a process, not an event. It's a continuous unfolding of self-awareness and self-acceptance. It's the work of a lifetime to become increasingly genuinely yourself. But the results are extraordinary. When you embark on this journey of personal integration, when you stop running from yourself and start embracing yourself completely, something fundamental changes in how you move through the world. You develop a quality of presence that's magnetic, not because you're trying to attract, but because you've become someone worthy of attention. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius wrote that the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. When you cultivate thoughts of self-acceptance and integration, your soul reflects that, and people will see it, they will feel it, and they will be drawn to it. Because in a world of people who are fragmented and performing, a man who is whole is a rare and precious thing. And in the end, That's the true secret of sexual magnetism according to Jung. It's not about techniques or strategies or performances. It's about becoming so completely, so integrally and authentically yourself that your mere presence becomes a force of nature. When you stop trying to be attractive and start being fascinating. When you stop trying to seduce and start simply existing completely, you become dangerously irresistible in a way that goes far beyond superficial attraction. If you felt something resonating while listening to this, if you recognize that there's a more integrated and magnetic version of you waiting to emerge, then write in the comments, "I choose to become whole." Because that's the journey, not to become someone different, but to become completely who you already are underneath all the masks and performances. And if you made it this far, it wasn't by accident. Something inside you recognized these truths about transformation and is asking for passage to real change. Carl Jung said that he who looks outside dreams, but he who looks inside awakens. And awakening requires more than just understanding. It requires conscious action day after day. The philosopher Seneca once wrote that it is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it. Do not waste the time you have left on performance and pretense. Use it to become who you really are. Because when you do, you become a force that cannot be ignored. Thank you for being here. See you in the next video.